Tell us a little about the Welburns and your boys and that part of your life, please.
Yeah, Jesse and I met just, I guess, about 8 or 9 years ago, and dated for a few years. We got married in ceremonies in the gardens of the Bulgari Hotel in Milan, Italy, 2 years ago. And she is the love of my life and just gives me so much energy. She's so creative. She's a marketing person and just is so creative all the time. It just, people ask me why I smile so much, why I'm so happy. Well, she's why I'm so happy and just keeps me going. And we still have a small place in Michigan, but our main home is here in Pennsylvania. Yes.
It sounds like she's your muse. She does inspire you, huh?
She inspires me, big time, big time.
Tell us about your sons.
Well, I have one son and one daughter. Son lives in Chicago. You know, his background is advertising. He's on the account side, but yet he's a very creative person, you know. And during the virus, he set up movie nights. You know, he lives in these condos and they have like a courtyard or like an alley between all the condos, and he set up outside movie nights, and
nice.
It's kind of cool. My daughter is married and has 2 children, and they live in Maryland. And I'm so proud of both of my kids. These kids are so cool.
I think you mentioned the grandchildren are visiting right now. Is that right?
They're here right now. They're so much fun, and I've given them design projects, and you know, I feel like I learned from them as well. And yeah, I gave them a project of designing a scooter, electric scooter, and they did some pretty cool things. I think my grandson is more into how much money these will make than what it looks like.
Wow.
And he's 9 years old. Yeah.
That's wonderful that you're spending time with your family at this time, and apparently always that's important to you.
And I'm judging classic cars at a number of events, and you know, that's all pretty much on hold at the moment. But Amelia Island, Pebble Beach, you know, and you know, a couple others. Well, I get to Japan, to Suzuka for a classic car event there. Aldrin's up in Rhode Island is great too. Yeah.
You mentioned in a letter we exchanged with each other's Tony Bennett. What an amazing, you know, our world doesn't often cross into that realm, but music has obviously been a big part of your life.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how that all came together?
Well, I love music. I absolutely love it. And a good friend of ours, Linda Solomon, knows Tony, and we had gone to a concert together to see Tony, and he invited us backstage afterwards, and we went for drinks. Tony and I ended up sitting at one end. You know, I think there were 6 of us, and Tony and I sat at one end of the table, and I can't talk to him about music. I mean, this man, you know. But I knew that he's also an artist. He's a great painter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he does great work. And so we talked about painting. In fact, he said, you know, and he's still head instructor. And he said, you know, my instructor wants me to do some sculpture because he thinks it'd help me understand 3-dimensional form better.
Now you got common ground.
And yeah, so we had a long conversation about that. And I told him, yeah, I think he's absolutely right. So I think about a year later, I was, and we'll talk about his foundation, it's very important. I was lecturing at one of the schools that he supports. And afterwards, he called me over to the side. You know, Tony at the time, I think was 89. And he pulls out his wallet and he pulls his photograph. He said, you know, you told me I should do some sculpture, and my instructor did. So here's a picture of the one I did. And he pulls this little photo out. He did a bust of Harry Belafonte that
Oh,
is unbelievable. Very first sculpture he did is just unbelievable.
spot on.
Spot on. And so much emotion and passion in it. Yeah. And he said, you know, I don't know that I'll ever do another piece of sculpture, but you're right. It did help me understand three-dimensional forms. And he paints. When I'm now on his foundation, and his foundation supports public schools of the arts. And it started out in New York, and there are quite a few schools of the arts, public schools of the arts there, and there are some in LA that they support. It's well over 20 schools they support, and I'm on the board, and I spend time with students visiting, and I lecture with them. They're at high school level. And there are quite a few other people. Lady Gaga will, you know, they won't know in advance when she's coming because that can make things crazy, but she'll stop by. And I met her backstage at one of the concerts. And a couple years ago, when it was Tony's 90th birthday was approaching, and Alec Baldwin called me, asked me to be on the committee for the birthday party with Gaga and himself. Hit a huge party in New York, and it was great. But it's just, you know, so those are big things, but yet when I'm with him, it's very, very small, very intimate. He's, you know, very quiet man, moves very slowly, but when he's on stage, it's like, who is this guy? I mean, he's dancing, he's moving, he's singing, and always at one point in concert, he puts the mic down and sings a cappella. But his passion is, you know, exploring the arts, and this foundation supports public schools of the arts, and it's music, it's art, it's theater. And I was at one of the schools recently, the Sinatra School in New York, and the theater that he was very demanding on the acoustics that are in it, just fabulous.